Hey there, Terry here. Just a quick announcement that if you like giving voice to depression, you might also like my new podcast, Recoverable. On it, I will be asking experts the top 10 most searched questions about different addictions and mental health conditions and therapies. Look for Recoverable wherever you get your podcasts. Hello and welcome to the Giving Voice to Depression podcast, brought to you by Recovery.com, the best place to find mental health and addiction treatment for anyone, anywhere.
Each week, we profile a guest who shares openly about their mental health journey. They share because they understand that when people don't talk about their depression or other mental health conditions, those of us who do struggle with them can feel like we're the only ones, that there's something wrong with us and that no one understands. We understand.
I'm Terry McGuire, the creator and co-host of this podcast. You have my promise that we'll keep it real here. Depression is real, and we're not going to sugarcoat our discussions about it.
Hope is also real, and you'll get a dose of that here too. I'm Carly McCullough, a licensed social worker and educator, and Terry's daughter. We've both experienced depression and also support loved ones struggling with it. We're here to normalize talking about depression and mental health in our communities, as well as our families.
And to share real-world tested strategies that have worked for other people who have walked similar paths. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Carly.
Hi, Mom. Imagine yourself having symptoms of an illness or condition or disease that's really affecting the quality of your life and thinking, I can't have that because I have no time for it, or I have strong faith, or maybe I don't even believe that illness is real. It sounds preposterous, doesn't it? Because an untreated illness is likely to worsen, completely independent of your thoughts or beliefs about it.
But many of us ignore or even deny signs that we're struggling with our mental health, depression in particular. And in today's episode, we're going to talk with a psychologist who recently wrote an article titled Depression and Denial, 10 Reasons You Don't Get Depressed, But You Are.
This week and next, we'll step through those 10 reasons with psychologist, author, and fellow podcaster, Dr. Margaret Rutherford, as she gives her voice to depression.
So, as a therapist of 35 years,
long
isn't that
time.
wild?
Yeah.
Who treats people with depression, and an author who has studied it and written about it, how common is hiding our depression?
I think fairly common. Now, the last message I want to give to people is if you cannot hide it and people know you struggle with it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, one of the criteria for a diagnosis of depression is that it's observable to you. You notice a change in yourself, or other people notice a change in you. So that's one kind of depression, what I call classic depression. Then there's something called high-functioning depression, which I've seen a lot of out in the literature. And that is more, to me, again, this is my take on it, Terry, is that these folks also know they're depressed and might even talk about themselves being depressed. They might be in therapy. They might be on medication, but their symptoms are not so strong that they can't work, that they want to go back to bed to go to sleep every day after they take their kids to school, that their functioning level is far higher.
Okay.
And sometimes I think that that's kind of tough because, people don't necessarily treat you or identify you as depressed, and you're not hiding it exactly, but you're not announcing it either. So I think there's that group.
Then there's the kind of depression Dr. Margaret focuses on, perfectly hidden depression.
They're the people that I have been trying to reach now for over a decade, which are people who they're hiding, quote unquote, they're compartmentalizing their emotional pain, their inability to connect with it has gone on for so long and is so early a habit that they don't even realize maybe that's what they're doing anymore. These are people who will say things like, I just don't cry, or I don't like to talk about myself, or my problems are nowhere near anybody else's. And so, who am I to complain? Those are the kinds of folks sometimes. Then there's the kind of depression that have this inner core of deep emotional pain that they do not know how to access. They do not know how to talk about it. And they actually may not only vehemently deny they're depressed, but almost be ashamed that anybody would even consider, or I wonder, gosh, is she depressed? Is he depressed? Are they depressed? So it's a grab bag. I think we've done a lot to attend to or respond to the stigma out there about depression and anxiety and bipolar disorder, et cetera. But it's not gone,
No.
especially in certain parts of the United States and in the world. It's just not gone.
Dr. Margaret points out that being out of control of anything, emotional or mental, is scary to people, depression included. She says that's why a lot of people don't speak openly about their own.
That to me is something that makes it hard for people who love these folks to connect with them, to reach out with them if they are concerned, because it's just something that, if someone is pretty prickly about, why would you wonder if I was depressed? Right. Then, you stay away from it.
Yeah. We're going to get into the 10 reasons, or 10 of the many reasons that you have listed.
Sure.
Why somebody might hide it. But I'm thinking of myself, which sounds like such a bad thing to say. But when...
Not really.
It's all about me. When I had my worst depression, I didn't tell people. I wasn't saying, hey, I think I have depression. But in my mind, even now looking back, I don't think I was intentionally hiding anything. I think I didn't know it was a disorder, a medical condition.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
I think I thought it was me.
Yeah.
I think I just straight up lost my value as a human being.
Oh, Lord. Well, I think when you don't even recognize it's a disorder, and like you say, you just thought you were failing at life, I guess. Those are the people that when they come into an office like mine and sit down and go, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I can't figure it out. Yeah. And I'm even embarrassed to be here. When you give it a name, when you say, well, you fit criteria for this or that, then they're almost relieved. It's like, oh, I have something recognizable that has happened to me. I didn't cause this. And it's not some failure of mine. It's not some, I have panic disorder, which you know. And for a long time, I thought it was a failure of mine. I thought that it was something that made me less of a person. And it wasn't until I recognized that it was just as important a part of me, actually, as the part that I liked better and was more comfortable with. So it's that process of recognition, of identification, of saying something has my mind. It has it in its grip, and it has me in its grip. And I've not always been this way. Let me try to go back and think of a time when I didn't feel this way. What might have happened that, either do I have a genetic tendency for it in my family? Did I have some loss of some kind? What has happened that I could kind of trace when I began to change?
That something can creep in imperceptibly, so we don't even realize we're losing our joy, our energy, our perspective, connections, our sense of self.
The thing about more mild depression is that it's almost as if the lights can go down so slowly that you don't realize that you're squinting to try to see. So it's like everything gets darker and darker and darker and darker. But it feels passive. It's not like you all of a sudden have feelings of wanting to run away or something. It's just these feelings begin to emerge that grow stronger and stronger, and you just don't realize the impact they're having on you.
100%. Oh, I can still feel it.
I bet you can. I've been depressed twice in my life. Once was what I would call clinically depressed. Once was after my first marriage, when I was recognizing what a bad mistake I had made, and I just felt like I was in this pit and I couldn't move and I didn't have any energy. And then the second time was more of a hormonal thing. It was perimenopausal, and I really struggled. But that was more of an agitated depression for me. But because I had not had depression in my life very much, I could recognize the difference in myself. And of course, the second time around, I was a psychologist myself, so I recognized the changes in me, and I was more irritable and all that kind of thing.
When someone comes to your office, how often does somebody have a reason, know a reason, like it was a divorce, I'm in menopause, or even heredity?
I think people are more educated now. I mean, you can Google something, you can ask AI, what are the symptoms of depression? And you can begin to recognize it in yourself. But as I say, if that has happened over a longer period of time, or, if you have been grieving and that grief has turned into depression, then sometimes you don't recognize that that has happened. It just feels like your grief, you just cannot move past it.
Okay, we're going to get into 10 primary reasons that you or someone you care about may deny their depression. And if you're okay with it, I'm going to just step through the 10 you listed and have you elaborate for me.
You betcha.
The first is, it is a failure of my faith.
Yeah, boy, this is huge where I'm living. I live right in the middle of the Bible Belt. And this happens constantly, practically in my practice, is that someone will say, I have failed my faith. I have failed God. I should not be feeling this way. Sometimes they don't say those words, but they'll say things like, I tried to talk to my pastor about this, but he or she made me feel worse. And so I decided to risk coming into therapy, but I don't really want to be here. You'll hear a lot of resistance to coming into therapy. I mean, that's just shame talking loud and clear, loud and clear.
To say that someone, including ourselves, has depression because of a single cause lacks understanding in the same way that assuming a single happy pill or practice will cure us.
People usually get better because of a variety of reasons. They get better because of therapy. Sometimes they get better because of medication or exercise, or they really work on their relationship. But certainly the research shows that faith is a good guardrail against, some of these issues getting more intense, but it certainly doesn't prevent you from being depressed.
No one cause. If there was, it'd be easier.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah. Yeah, we would have figured out maybe what's the one thing that could fix it, but that's not true either. So,
yeah, that would be nice. All right. Number 2 on your list of why the denial of depression can be so strong is personal weakness or failure.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what you were saying. I think that is mostly about, there's probably been some sort of history of either that person shaming themselves for things or being shamed for it. Someone taking a lot of responsibility for maybe things in their life that they didn't have any control over that, and they weren't to blame at all, but they have been blamed or something. So they have the tendency to blame themselves for everything too. And of course, this can be huge in people who've had abuse in their childhoods. Now, that's not to say that when you are clinically depressed, a lot of your strengths, a lot of your skill set doesn't seem available to you. And so what I try to do, if their mind is working well enough to have some clarity about what exactly has happened to me and what do I have in my toolbox to fight it, I'll say, well, tell me about other times in your life when you have felt out of control. What have you done then? Well, I did this or I did that. And they have kind of forgotten that. So part of depression is this fuzziness about your thinking and very foggy thinking. It's like, I don't know my way out of this. And then if I help remind them, or any therapist helps remind them of, well, you've handled this before, I'm reminding them of their strengths. The other point I want to make, however, with bipolar disorder, sometimes those swings, those tsunami of depressions can hit you, and you think, but I've done the work. I'm getting enough sleep. I'm eating well. I'm exercising, and it still comes. So that's a very important part of affective disorders, that sometimes you want to have more control over them than you actually do.
Yeah.
One of the very frustrating things about it.
It sure is. And when I think of that personal weakness or failure part, I think of those of us who are used to getting our stuff done. To not be able to do it threatens our core identity.
Exactly. There's a feeling of lost. I'm lost. Where has the me that I've known gone?
Right.
It is a very lonely feeling, and one that then people, the more they try to hide it, as we're talking about it, that just grows their shame. Instead of, telling a therapist or someone they trust, I just don't feel like myself. I don't like who I am right now. I don't like what I'm thinking about, especially if they have suicidal thoughts. And I've got to figure out what's wrong. And that's where a therapist, I think, can be very helpful, because you're going to have probably minimized a lot of the things that may lead you into depression, things that are just going to rob you drop by drop by drop by drop of your energy.
I appreciate you giving specific language that could be used talking to a therapist, because it's easy to think I have to kind of know what's going on before I present it, so I can say, hey, listen, I have these, symptoms A through R, as opposed to saying like, I have no idea what the hell's going on, but I hate it.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I mean, that's not a great feeling to have, that you feel like, something's going on with me that I don't understand, I don't like, but I can't seem to prevent it or stop it. And again, sometimes medication is more than helpful in that way, although we don't really know how it works. But at the same time, another perspective is incredibly helpful.
Especially someone who's heard similar things before, probably a lot of times.
I just think she's the best.
I've always liked her too. Her books are great. Her TED Talk, we'll link to that. It's exceptional. So yeah, it's really important to understand that just because you don't understand you have depression, or don't want to admit you have, or somebody else in your life has it, that it doesn't mean it's not there, it's not real, and that it doesn't need some attention and support and maybe treatment.
One of the things that I really appreciated that Dr. Margaret mentioned was that the lights can go down slowly.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It was an exceptional metaphor. I love me a metaphor, but it's very, very clear that way, that there's this sense that the lights are fading really slowly, and it's getting harder and harder to see, and your eyes are also adjusting to it. And so it doesn't seem as dark as it is. And maybe this is just because I studied lighting design in college, but you could get the lights to change on the show, and you could make it change immediately. You could make it change sort of like, or like a sunrise might happen in real time in the course of a scene, for example. And so you might have the lights changing for over 5 minutes, and you could literally watch it go 14%, 15%. 16%. And the eye could barely tell that something was happening. But after the full fade, it looked definitely different in there, where the lights were either turned all the way on or all the way off a lot of times.
Interesting.
And I will say that is what I think depression can be. It can sort of slowly come upon us, and it makes it even harder to know that something's happening.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I thought the faith reason was really interesting, because when we post on social media, which we have done every day for nearly 10 years now, the comments are generally either in agreement. Somebody says, yep, that's what it's like, or that's something we have to remember. Or they're, give it to God. You need to have more faith. If you had more faith, read this verse, this chapter. And it's always fascinating to me, because first of all, it's a very important part of people, and it is a protective factor against suicide and those sorts of things. And I had a guest say, I 100% agree, and I very often pray on my way to my therapist or on my way to the pharmacy to pick up my meds or whatever it is that she needed.
Yeah. And a lot of the types of support that we've talked about on this podcast are not clinical, are not necessarily therapeutic, but they're super supportive ways that lay people can help each other. And for some of the reasons that there are additional levels of stigma or spiritual stigma in certain religious communities, that it might be an indication that that place is a beautiful place for you to receive tons of forms of support and to be seen and to be understood and to feel belonging. And if your faith community is one in which you're hearing some of those adages that you just shared, Mom, it might be a reminder that one community might not be able to be everything for us. And we might need to, it might behoove us in the same way that if our toe was really hurting, we might go to a podiatrist, that community might not have the tools for that particular thing. And so seeking some formal mental health support might be an idea.
Mm-hmm. And that's all we're saying.
Yep.
We will be back next week to continue this discussion of the 10 reasons people may deny their depression with Dr. Margaret Rutherford. Also want to say that we will be linking to her TED Talk on the topic. Her podcast, by the way, is called the Self-Work Podcast. One word, self-work. And she has written both a book and a workbook on perfectly hidden depression, if that's something you want to learn more about.
Thanks so much. We really hope that this discussion helps give some language or context to your own depression or ideas for how to support someone else in your life living with it. We invite you to check out the hundreds of episodes in our archive and to explore both the Resource Hub and treatment options on recovery.com. Depression is too dark a road to walk alone.
We'll be back next week.